This is as good as this. You see why I like The Sopranos and Mad Men? I have a flavor. I'm editorializing now. I'm reading my own book like new. It's good writing because it's simple, basic. I grew up reading real writers like Hemingway, who wrote, see, he was a journalist first, and he taught me to write as succinctly as possible. Then when I was studying to be a scientist, I learned scientific writing to write scientific papers, and the first rule was succinct, as few words as possible to get your ideas across. Anyone can write long sentences and the herefore, theretofore, and that's not the way to write. So I said, that's the beginning of my purgatory, my manhood. It says it like straight out, you know. I was cast down into the cellar where I used cyanide solution to clean bronze statues of their gorgeous patina. The statues were gorgeous. I learned a lot about art because I stayed at them all day long. Now you may say, what do you know about art? Well, I know quality from junk, artistry from fakery. The rest is a matter of taste. Now, let's analyze that line together. Look what I just wrote. What do you know about art? I know quality from junk, artistry from fakery. The rest is a matter of taste. That sentence is succinct, and it says it all. Anyway, so I'll go back to the book. So these figures would come in with a brown or black patina, which is the result of oxidation over time. The patina was sublime. But the nouveaux who were buying the figures to turn them into lamps wanted them to glitter like gold. Underneath the patina was the original bronze metal. I'll take that. I'll turn it into a lamp. Mount the thing. Blah, blah, blah. They'd buy it, and a certain number would be left for the weekend that I'd have to clean down in the basement. Down into the dirty, horrible, dank dungeon, filled with huge old wine barrels. A toilet from hell. No mirror on the wall except the shattered shards speckled from the acid that hit it. I'm down there from a young age with a toothbrush, scrubbing away at the patina. I don't really know if the cyanide was that bad. If it was, I'd be dead by now, I think. Perhaps it protected me from something. Hey, Dad, explain to me how I can use cyanide, since I understand from basic chemistry that they use cyanide balls at San Quentin. They put a guy in the chair and strap his head over the bucket, and the pellets drop in. Then the gas comes up, and he's dead in a few seconds. Dad, why would you put me in a basement with cyanide pellets to clean bronzes? Here's the answer now. This is right out of the Bible. I couldn't believe it. It took me 30 years to figure this out. This was a repetition of Abraham and Isaac. You see, Abraham picked up the knife, and God said, slay your son. He didn't even ask, my son? You sure you mean my son? Your son, I want him dead. All right, I'm a good guy, I'll kill my son for you. He grabs the kid, grabs him by the neck, like an Islamo-fascist, and is about to cut his throat when God says, wait, I was just kidding, I was only testing you. Now, no one ever talked about what that did to Isaac. The father he trusted suddenly grabs him by the neck and wants to cut his throat. You know, all you hear about is Abraham was so loyal and listened to God. But what did it do to Isaac? It drove him nuts. He never trusted anyone after that. His own father wanted to cut his throat because he was listening to someone in the sky. So now I'm in the basement, and he says to me, you're going to clean bronzes because you're going to become a man. I'm going to make you tough. You got to do something, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to use these pellets. Here's a big barrel of them. I get them from a chemical supply store. You drop them in water, and then you dip in your brush and wash the bronze, and the black comes off, and it looks shiny again. The customer wants the shiny statue for a lamp. So I say to him, how do you know it's not going to kill me? Here's what Abraham says to me. I mean, in the modern-day story, he says, because there's a potassium salt of the cyanide and a sodium salt of the cyanide. But here's the kicker. Dad doesn't tell me which one kills and which one dissolves patina, which is exactly why I went into science and medicine and chemistry, to find out whether he was trying to knock me off or not. I'm sorry, this is good writing. I'm sorry, this is good. Nobody else would do this except Louis from the Bowery, the one with the monkey. We get rubber gloves on up to our elbows and drop these white pellets into water, then turn it into a cyanide solution. Then we take the brush and rub the figure until the patina came off the bronze. I'm rubbing. It would take you an hour or two to do each statue. Rub, rub. I'm a kid. I'm rubbing. And what I'm thinking about is where I'm going that night. I'm going out on a date or to hang out with my friends or going to a movie. Meanwhile, my face would be getting blotched, and I'm rubbing and cleaning in what's like a Dickens basement. So I get into high school chemistry years later, and I told my teacher what I was doing. I was using cyanide balls. My father had a huge chemical supply. It was not used for anything but this. I said to the teacher that I use these cyanide balls for cleaning statues, for cleaning solution. Teacher said, what? It's poisonous, but don't get worried. There's a sodium cyanide, and there's a potassium cyanide salt. Now, to this day, I don't know which one kills you. If you're a doctor reading this or listening to this in the Savage Nation or a trained scientist, I want you to think about what I'm going to say. Is it possible that inhaling the fumes that didn't kill you outright in some way mitigated against the oxidation of fatty foods powering through my arteries? I have a pet theory that in some way, although it blotched my face, it built up my immunity to something. I know it did. I just don't know what. So that story is found in Psychological Nudity by Michael Savage. Great story. Worthy of a movie. Savage. New York City, WOR. Norm, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Hi, Mr. Savage. You were talking about why the Republicans don't seem to be talking about the arts.
Yeah.
I'm an artist in New York City. I'm also an art teacher. And I noticed that most of the artists on the grassroots level in the galleries, they all tend to be liberals, leftists. I'm rare among them. And you got the perfect example of 1937 when Johnny Rockefeller II, he hired this guy, Orozco, who was a painter, to do his mural in...
Rockefeller hired Rothko to do his murals? That's how he got to fame?
Well, no, he was top guy. So he hired a creative guy, and he tried to paint Lenin in one of those murals, which he did. These guys, the painters, tend to be leftists. The guys up on top who would give the grants, who spend the money, they tend to be mostly Republicans, are not too good in art, and they have a little bit of envy in them because they're not artists. So who runs?
Why don't the conservatives who have the money demand more from the artistes? Why are all the artistes so left wing? Why is it that they don't understand the basics, which is that when repressive regimes arise, as they have in Venezuela, the artists suffer? Don't they put two and two together that the left today is the danger, that there is no right at all in this country? There's absolutely no right-wing government whatsoever. There's no right-wing waiting in the wings in this country. Where is it? The Republican Party isn't the right wing. They're the Republican Party.
Absolutely right.
The true party of liberation is a party of one. That's what I've been trying to say with my show for these years. A party of none is also a liberation, to not belong to either of these machines. Thanks for the call. Whatever.
Armstrong and Getty.
They're not bullies with a microphone.
Weekday morning, 6 to 10. Talk 910 KNEW.
John in Connecticut, line 5. Go ahead. You're on the Savage Nation.
Yeah, how you doing, Michael? One of the reasons why we don't listen to or expect to hear the arts and entertainment from you and others is basically we're getting from other places. And you know, I can get my arts and entertainment and go to museums and get that type of thing from other sources, and it's pretty unspinnable from my perspective. We listen to you for direct commentary on politics and finance and other things like that.
Okay, I understand that, but what if a person who is on the right side of the dial, as I am, goes to a museum or an art show and I talk about it? Why is that not of interest? In other words, seeing an art show from the conservative perspective. I'll give you an example. San Francisco once had a pretty good set of museums here. Most of them have been taken over by radical leftists who put on some of the most abominable exhibitions imaginable, such as a series of dresses and clothing worn by some old woman who had a lot of money. They actually put on an exhibit of the woman's shoes, her dresses, her clothing. And I went there, and I think rather hysterically ripped the exhibit apart. I thought that was political and artistic.
I agreed. I know there's a lot of other examples of that kind of garbage out there. And, you know, I mean, I've heard about it in New York City. Occasionally there's been art shows where they've, you know, we've heard all about them. But,
well, that's what I mean. I'm not going to just talk about art to sound intellectual or to sound like a pseudo-intellectual. But when they do an exhibit in a museum about a woman's shoes, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And I said, this is an example of what's going on in museums today. Now, that's what I mean by covering the arts. Now, of course, in passing, I'll also talk about one of the finest oceanic collections in the world, which happens to be in the museum here. But the best one is in New York City, the Rockefeller collection. You've probably seen it yourself.
And we appreciate the interjection occasionally, but for the most part, you know, mainly we're looking for, you know, the direct...
All right, so what you're saying in a nice way is lay off the art crap and stick to politics.
I don't mind the art commentary occasionally, but I can get that from other places. What I can't get is direct commentary on politics. It's always fun in other places. That's why we come to you, because you.
Yeah, but listen, here's the thing. I come on late in the day in New York on the East Coast. I come on late afternoon in the Bay Area on the West Coast, and in between the rest of the country. You've heard it all. Haven't you heard it by now? Haven't you heard everything about health care, or you don't have the time to listen earlier? Is that what you're saying?
We get it a little bit, but you give us a little bit different perspective. You know, appreciate your perspective on things. You know, the way that you bring in your background with the botany and things like that.
All right, so you want me to focus almost entirely, as I've done for 15 years, on politics and lay off the other stuff?
Flavor occasionally, but I do.
I hear you. I don't know if I can do it anymore, though. I'm making an admission, John. I think after 15 years of it, I'm bored of it. I find politics extremely boring. We know that, look, let's talk about the basics. Obama is a Marxist. Everything about him, if it walks like a